It's supposed to be like Billy has just walked through a portal into 2026 and is doing one of her sets.
Hello and welcome to the Culture Beats podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bournet, and my guest today is Ben Zingos, Executive Director of the Space Pirates Theater Collective. Ben, did I pronounce your last name correctly?
That was pretty good, yeah. That was as good as anyone whose first language is English ever does it.
Cool. So tell me about the collective and did you found the collective or how did you get involved with the collective?
Yeah, so I started it back in the fall of 2024. I uh, started it largely because well actually there's a lot of reasons, but I started it primarily because I want to be able to make theater with the design methodology that I developed during my thesis when I was in grad school.
Hmm.
And that methodology basically is an immersive design methodology that asks directors and designers to, instead of trying to make a theater space through scenic design and like building up the space and adding things or taking things out, instead of trying to transform a theater space or a performance space into something that, feels like somewhere else,
Hmm.
it's a lot more efficient to just go find a space in the world that, through its natural use and habitation by people living and working in it, cries out for a specific play to be staged in it. Now, it does have its own limitations, obviously. It only
Hmm.
really works for plays that take place in one location. It also doesn't work great for plays that don't like have some usable kind of location where you could like realistically get an audience into,
Uh-huh.
like if it
Uh-huh.
takes place in I don't even have an example on the top of my head, but like there's plenty of examples where it's like, oh, you couldn't feasibly, get that to rent or use. But a lot of spaces it does work, and there are a ton of plays that, largely because of, scenic and other design costs, have been written to only take place in one location,
Hmm.
including much of the American theater canon. And so we basically, find these locations, and instead of trying to create this new place from scratch, we just really build all of the design around drawing out the latent immersive aspects of the space and, trying to really heighten what's already there. And the collective is very much rooted in this methodology from a design perspective, but
Hmm.
there's a lot more to it. But that's probably the biggest thing.
So the collective is based in Los Angeles, right? That's where you
Yes.
stage your productions.
Yes, that's correct.
So as we're recording, your current production is Lady Day at the Bar and Grill, is that right?
Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and
At
Grill.
Emerson's
Yes.
Bar and Grill. That's the story. That's like a story about Billie Holiday, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, so it's a play that recreates one of her late career concerts.
Hmm.
And yeah, she's basically at this point in her career just performing in these really small lounges and clubs. And we have rented out a really cool underground comedy club here in Los Angeles called the Zebra Room. It's
Hmm.
located inside of the historic Charlie Chaplin Studios in East
Hmm.
Hollywood.
Hmm.
And it's got incredible ambience. And, in the case of this play with the design methodology, it actually is supposed to take place in a performance space, just not a theater. It's supposed to
Hmm.
be in a, in a bar or a lounge. And so
Okay.
that's, where we've come at this production from. We're doing it in this venue that is very similar to a lot of the types of lounges and bars she played in towards
Hmm.
the end of her career. And instead of having it be a traditional theater thing where, people get their drinks at the start, they see the first act, intermission, they come get more drinks, and then go back and then see the rest of it. Like it's in completely continuous and open space. The bar's open the whole show. It's supposed to be like Billy has just walked through a portal into 2026 and is doing one of her sets. And at this point in her life and career, she's like so messed up on alcohol and opiates that, she honestly probably can't even really tell. It's like a close enough approximation of Emerson's that she doesn't even realize she's not in Philly. She's in LA in
Whoa.
2026.
Wow.
And so that's kind of where we've come at it from a concept. And it's I'm a little biased, of course, but we had our opening night last night, and I think it worked just absolutely incredible. I mean, um, I am a very, very like harsh perfectionist,
Hmm.
again, especially against the stuff that I make. And this sounds bad. I've never liked anything I've made. Like I always hate the things I make. They're just not good enough. Which is why I'm never happy. But in this case, I think it helps that I had such an incredible team. I mean, our cast, the two ladies we have playing Billy are just unbelievable. Our pianist is incredible. Our director, outstanding. Everyone, literally the entire team is like so great. Our music director, stage manager, that like it's I don't know. I've never worked on a team where everyone was so good at their job and everyone was trying so hard, and the results are just incredible. I mean, I'm beyond thrilled. If you're listening to this and you're based in the LA area, I highly recommend catching the show. Runs from now until March 6th, and yeah, definitely worth seeing.
Well, congratulations on a successful opening night.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so the way you're staging the show kind of sounds a little bit like uh, uh, Cabaret. I know Cabaret is at least one of the productions of Cabaret was done to make the space look like it's the Kit Kat Club, and the audience is
Yeah.
actually members, or they're actually like patrons at the Kit Kat Club rather than people who bought a ticket to a Broadway show and are sitting in a formal theater.
I actually saw that production, and it
Okay,
was
okay.
incredible. I
Yeah.
loved the design. So it's funny because my whole thing is immersive design and working in these unconventional spaces. But what
Uh-huh.
made me fall in love with immersive theater was actually artists, doing plays in regular theaters, but like just completely transforming the theater so it
Hmm.
feels like somewhere else. And
Hmm.
that's really cool. And I think that's a very effective and very valid form of immersive theater making. The only
Hmm.
problem is it's very expensive. It costs
Oh.
a lot of money to
Uh-huh.
transform a theater into a place that feels like somewhere else. That
Uh,
Kit Kat Club production cost millions and millions and millions of dollars
wow.
to completely transform that theater and to make it feel like an underground
Hmm.
club in, Germany in the 30s. Like that,
Yeah.
that was an incredible show. And, what really inspired me initially with immersive theater was the work of Rachel Chavkin and Mimi Lien.
Hmm.
They worked with Dave Malloy on a few of his shows, as well as on a lot of other great pieces of theater. And, Mimi, she's the scenic designer, Rachel's the director. She just completely turns the theaters into just different places. Like you almost it feels like you're in a different place in such an incredible way. And that really made me fall in love with immersive theater. Like seeing their work when I was a teenager, like that really planted the seeds and really is like what inspired me to want to make immersive theater. But the problem with those, designs is that they're just so expensive. You have
Yeah.
to have a lot of investors. And this leads me to, the other major part of Space Pirates is like I can't personally be making theater if it's not accessible and affordable.
Hmm.
I grew up very working class. My mom's public school teacher, had a single
Hmm.
mom,
Where'd you
and
grow up in LA or
no, I grew up in Orange County, which is a horrible place. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that,
the
but
OC?
yeah, I mean, listen, I grew up in Huntington Beach, and we lived in the one not rich, nice part of it,
Uh-huh.
which all of the rich kids referred to as the Slater slums because it was on Slater, and it
Oh,
was where
okay.
all of the working class
Okay.
and largely non-white people lived.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Because, white kids in Orange County, good times.
Hmm.
But like, we obviously still like I got to do plenty of fun things as a kid and see plenty of great stuff. My mom worked really, really hard to let me still have an incredible childhood and, have all of these experiences. We would go see theater together, and it was really such a magical thing. Because she, before she was a teacher, she was actually an actress and a singer. And so she, that those were really important experiences for me. But unfortunately, regional theater is really expensive.
Yeah.
Not as bad as Broadway, but it is very expensive even still to see professional regional theater. And it was a very special occasion kind of thing for at least $40, $50,
Yeah.
for even decent seats.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted good seats, it's easily going to be in that 80, 90, sometimes over 100 range if the show is popular.
Yeah.
Um, and so like we got to do it very sporadically and very much for special occasions, birthdays, and that kind of
Mhm.
stuff.
Mhm.
And I just think about like how important those experiences were for me, how formative they were, like how much I treasure those memories.
Mhm.
And it's like, man, if those tickets were affordable, if they were $10
Yeah.
instead of 40, 50, 80, 90, 100, whatever, like how many more of those experiences would I have had with my mom, you know?
Mhm.
Like how many more of those going to see theater as a kid with her would I have gotten? Like that makes me kind of sad, you know? It's like wow, it really is just pricing out. And the sad thing is like the kids that I went to school with were
Mhm.
getting to do that because they were rich and their parents, they were theater kids too, they were my peers and they weren't even the jerky kids. Like they weren't the ones being, um homophobic or
Ostracizing people. Yeah.
calling me slurs or calling me like what like they weren't
Yeah.
the ones doing that. They were my friends.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
they got to go see as much theater as they wanted because their parents had a lot of money
Uh-huh.
and they didn't care. Like, oh, $50 ticket?
Yeah.
Like that was a huge deal for us. And
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
it's like I want that to be the experience that all the kids growing up in the area I'm making theater can have, not just the ones who have a lot of or whose parents have a lot of money, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
So we are very radically affordable, but then at the same time, I also need people to make a living wage, which is
Yeah.
kind of those are very conflicting. Those don't usually go together. Um, I have a really big problem with not just wage inequality, but also just people not being able to like reasonably eat for the amount
Yeah.
of work they're doing
Yeah.
in a given week on a show.
Mhm.
Um, it is it is really rough in the theater world.
Yeah.
If you're a professional theater maker, most of the time, if you're doing like professional regional theater,
Mhm.
the audience is paying a lot of money to see you,
Yeah.
and you are being paid very little money to perform for them.
Mhm.
And this is largely because there's a lot of greed in the theater
Yeah.
world. Um, but also because maintaining a permanent theater place is incredibly expensive.
Mhm.
Theater spaces like, like actual legit theaters, the taxes in Los Angeles and in this country in general for permanent performance venues are very high. And
Mhm.
like maintaining them, keeping them, all of the property taxes, all of the everything that you have to do to keep it running, it's
Maintenance and
really
upkeep of the
expensive.
actual facility. Yeah.
Yeah, the facilities are super expensive to maintain. And so it's
Mhm.
like they, yes, they're overpaying their executives and their administrators, but like if they weren't paying for the ridiculous costs of this permanent space, like they would be able to still be pretty greedy at the top and actually pay their artists a decently living wage. Um, but I don't want it to be that kind of deal where like it's if my theater is creating a system where we're not paying those exorbitant fees,
Mhm.
uh, because when we go into these immersive spaces, like they're not used for performance, they're not used for any of the stuff we use it for, and so when
Mhm.
they're rented out at significantly lower rates. Because
Mhm.
that's the thing, if you don't have a permanent theater space, renting one is obscenely expensive
Yeah.
because the people maintaining them have to pay so much to have them.
Yeah.
And if we go into these unconventional spaces, like it's a fraction of the price and we get rid of that entire issue. And we save a ton of money on the design because again, I want to make immersive theater. Trying to make a theater space feel like somewhere else, super, super difficult. Does very expensive. You can do it. It's definitely doable. It's
Mhm.
can be done incredibly effectively, but it's very expensive.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like with filmmaking, how it's actually cheaper in many ways to film on location. Like say if you have a story set in someone's apartment, it might be actually cheaper to film in an apartment rather than building a set on a studio, even though the studio might be convenient in the sense that you can move walls and you have more room for crew and lighting and stuff. But if you're an indie production and you want a realistic setting, it's much, much cheaper and easier to film on location rather than build a set.
Exactly. And we're
Yeah.
basically the theater equivalent of that in some ways because, building a set, very expensive, requires a lot of work, a lot of skilled labor.
Yeah, for it
Granted,
not to
I am
look
see
cheap. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, for it to not look cheap, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And our whole thing is immersive. We want it to be intimate. We want people to be close, and so they can see the seams. It's not like when they're sitting, 30 feet back or
Yeah.
something where with a traditional theater, like they can see it up close. And so
Uh-huh.
pretty much nothing we use for our design elements are like fabricated. They're all actually what they are. They're
Yeah.
all real. Because if they, or they're incredibly, incredibly good fabrications, if for whatever reason the real thing is not obtainable. But like, you have to put a lot of money and care and effort into making these spaces feel realistic. Otherwise, the immersive effect is ruined.
Hmm.
In my thesis, I'm identified, at least what, to me and in my research and experience, really causes someone to feel like they are immersed in something or creates a continuous immersive experience. And
Hmm.
like what really allows for that is the limiting or elimination of breaks in the immersion, you know?
You
If
mean
you're
like
getting snapped,
no intermission and no
no, no, no,
scene.
I don't mean that. I
Oh, okay.
mean breaks as in like you're snapped out of being in the moment with what's happening and like, oh yeah, this is a play. Oh yeah,
Okay.
this is a, like I know I'm seeing something that isn't real
Hmm.
and I'm just
Hmm.
sitting here. Like it's kind of like when you see a movie, you
Hmm.
have willing suspension of disbelief, of course, but
Hmm.
if the movie does something completely,
Breaks the fourth wall, kind of. Yeah.
out of or not even breaks the fourth wall but just out of left field doesn't make sense and the writing
Yeah.
doesn't it's not earned it's not like it doesn't work like that will take you out of the movie it'll take you
Hmm.
out of that locked in experience where you're not really thinking about the fact that you're watching a movie you're just living it and feeling it and empathizing with the characters and the story like we are really working with a much more I wouldn't say much more like intricate but like it's like if we have a break with the type of theater we're trying to make, like it's a
Hmm.
lot it causes a lot of I don't even know how to phrase it, like
Cognitive
artistic.
dissonance, is that what you're trying to say? Or
No, it's like I'm trying to say like basically it ruins it. Like if you get taken out of it and you're like not feeling it
uh-huh.
with the characters, if you're not feeling like you're actively immersed,
Yeah.
like that same feeling you get in a theater when you're just kind of like, yeah, this is a
Play.
play. I'm
Uh-huh.
not really moved. I'm not really in it.
Uh-huh.
Like I know I'm just watching this thing. Like that's what we're trying to eliminate. I apologize if to our incredible audience if I am sounding a little out of it. It has been an incredibly taxing week getting the show with Tech Week in theater. That is
Yeah.
our hell week. So.
No, no,
Um,
you're fine. Totally understandable. So here's a question for you. You're talking about immersive theater and not wanting to have anything that will take the audience away from the story and make them think, this is I'm just watching a show. So one of my favorite Broadway shows of all time that I've ever seen, I'm a playwright as well as being in a million other hats that I wear. I went and saw Sunset Boulevard on Broadway last summer with Nicole Scherzinger, and I feel like she really earned that Tony. And what really impressed me about the show was that there are no sets. It's done black box style with a big screen at the back of the stage with someone was videotaping the actors the whole time, and you see the cameraman on stage the whole time. Sort of kind of keeping with the theme of old Hollywood. You see a cameraman on stage the whole time. So there was I didn't even need the binoculars I brought, and I was sitting in the very last seat of the upper balcony because the actors' faces were magnified on screen the whole time. The actors wore the same black outfit the whole time, so there was no props, no scenery. Everything was either done with like any kind of scene change was done with the screen. Like, okay, we're going from Norma Desmond's mansion to the studio, and you
Was
see
this
them.
directed by Ivo Van Hove?
I think so. I don't remember. The director that's
I haven't heard anything about this production. I have not been following Broadway, to be honest,
yeah,
recently,
yeah.
and so
Well, I bring that up because
I'm just curious, just from how it sounds.
yeah, that to me that's a more cost of. I don't think they did it because of, cost to keep costs down. I think they just did it for the artistic uh
Oh, for sure.
flair of making the audience kind of like, okay, you have to really use your imagination. So that's sort of one way of approaching of it's not so much immersive, it's almost like the opposite of immersive. You have to use your imagination that you're seeing Norma Desmond's elaborate mansion, even though it's nothing but a black stage. So is that something you would consider? Because you would still that was still done in a traditional Broadway theater. It just was done with totally no sets and no props and just one set of one set of costumes. Is that something you would consider, or you want to still keep the
Yeah,
concept?
it's kind of like the so that's fun because that's kind of the opposite of what we do.
Okay.
It's very much like that's very like Brechtian. It's like there's a lot of alienation where you're like, you're feeling like you're constantly being reminded that you're watching a thing that is a
Yeah.
theater,
Uh-huh.
and it's
Uh-huh.
it's asking you to introspect. It's asking you to, like think about what is happening on stage with context to it being theater and in the
Yeah.
larger context of the world, and that is also an incredibly valid and valuable
Uh-huh.
type of
Uh-huh.
theater making. It is
Uh-huh.
it is I love Brecht. I love all of those
Uh-huh.
kind of
Uh-huh.
elements. It's just, with immersive theater, we're generally trying to um whisk people away and make them feel like they are seeing something sometimes almost that they shouldn't be, because that's the fun part too, is like we have our plays are on a spectrum of immersivity. It goes all the way from interactive, where it's something where the audience is being brought into the story, they're part of it, they're living
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
The last play in our season is going to be like that.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid if you don't want to be talked to or be involved. It's like a you have to
It's
make it
audience
clear you want to be
participation.
involved.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it is not forced participation. But
Yeah.
like that is one end of it where it's like, wow, the people, everyone here, the actors know you're there, they see you, you see them, we're all
Mhm.
in a
Mhm.
continuous space and we're all just here and this thing is happening. And that's incredibly immersive and incredibly, effective for this type of theater. But then at the other end of the spectrum, we have what I like to call fly on the wall immersivity. Instead
Mhm.
of making our audiences, literally a part of the story in the sense that they're involved in affecting it and they're, seen by the actors, we want to create this immersive space that is fully realized and essentially put audiences into this state of like, oh wow, I am like here in this real place and this stuff is happening, but they just can't see me. It's
Uh-huh.
almost
Uh-huh.
voyeuristic,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? I want the audience to feel like they are a fly on the wall in this room of this action. They've flown into this room. These characters are there, they're doing their thing, it's happening,
Mhm.
they're observing, and then the action ends, the play's over, and they fly away.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
like you saw something you never really should have saw, but it was some kind of, whether it's a drama, comedy, whatever it is, like whatever it is you shouldn't have been seeing that you saw, you fly away from it thinking, oh, I'm really glad I saw that.
Mhm.
That's kind
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
idea.
Are you familiar with Tony and Tina's Wedding?
No.
Yeah, so that was a play that was popular in the 90s, and it came to my town, Columbus, Ohio, and it it's totally the audience participation model where it's about as the title would suggest, it's about a couple getting married, and they hold it in like ballrooms where wedding receptions would typically be held. And so the audience is you're supposed to play along and feel like you're at somebody's wedding reception. So the actors they have a script. It's scripted, but the actors will come out and improvise and interact with the audience. And like so at one point and this isn't, a lot of it is like Italian stereotypes. So they have like a like cousin Vinny who pulls you out into the hallway and tries to sell you, counterfeit watches. So that was something that happened to me. And then the bride at one point, um, asked me to dance because the cast is acting like the audience is part of their friends and family who were invited to the wedding.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've seen those type of shows and they are fun, but if you're a very shy person like I am, it was a little bit like, whoa, I didn't know I was coming to be part of the show.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
we have shows that are more interactive, and I really appreciate and understand that.
Uh-huh.
Um, we make it very clear, one, that the show is interactive when you're
Hmm.
buying tickets,
Hmm.
but two, that if you don't want to be involved, like you just have to like give literally any cue to the actor that visibly like nope, 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 or I don't want nope, any
Okay.
literally any visible cue, and you will be completely passed over and left alone.
Okay.
Um, yeah. And also like you don't even need to really like if an actor tries to involve you and you just like
Yeah.
they will just quickly go to somebody else. So,
Okay.
because
Okay.
also that's the thing is like interactive theater is great because for every person who absolutely does not like do not talk to me, I don't want to be
Hmm.
involved,
Hmm.
there's someone who really wants to be involved.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who really love that. That really brings them into it. It makes them have the best time.
Hmm.
They will naturally let the let the actors know that, and
Hmm.
it's pretty easy actually if the actors are, you know, trained and told like, hey, this is how we're doing this. Don't bring in anybody who clearly doesn't want to be brought in. Make sure it's actually fun for everyone. Because that's the
Yeah.
thing too, if you're one of those introverted people, you know, you don't get involved in it, but maybe one of your friends is one of those,
Uh-huh.
extroverted people who
Hmm.
wants to be involved. You have a lot of fun watching your friend get, brought into it and be part of it. You get to enjoy that experience without actually having to have any attention from the audience on you.
Yeah.
That's the idea. That's what we're trying to create with those shows.
Yeah, and something else that I thought was really impressive about Space Pirates when I was reading up on your collective is that you give all the crew and actors an equity stake in the production. Why why
Yeah,
why,
so
why do that?
Yeah, so that's another part of us being space pirates. We obviously take over spaces and commandeer them for our own uses, but we are also inspired a lot by the share systems used by 17th century pirates,
Hmm.
which was essentially, I mean, it's actually a little different. Ours is a little more egalitarian than theirs. The captain got two shares, and the cook, quartermaster, and something else, I don't remember who, got like 1.5 shares, and then everyone else in the crew got one share of like
Hmm.
whatever treasure they got on the voyage. They actually had workman's comp. The first workman's comp policies in history were actually on pirate contracts.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, pirates were amazing. They were actually also they were the first documented anti-racists in like history because racism is relatively recent. Since the uh, transatlantic slave trade, and so like they a lot of pirates were freed slaves, and a lot of pirates were people who had problems with the way the world was in that time. And obviously, there were a lot of pirates who were awful and did horrible things. I'm
Hmm.
not minimizing or anything,
Hmm.
but like they're often made out to be, you know, just pure villains when a lot of the time they were just people who wanted to like be treated equally or like have a life experience that wasn't being enslaved or incredibly, oppressed or, I mean, there were also women pirates, not a ton. That the amount of women pirates is actually often over emphasized by
Emphasize.
people when talking about the history. There really weren't that many, but there were some, and they were iconic. And like it's a collection of people who were basically just othered by society. I mean, very few people who were pirates were like actually like that. Most of them didn't really have a choice. There was
Hmm.
either be a pirate or be something where you're getting treated much worse, you know?
Hmm.
Like that was the world they lived in. And they gave everyone an equity stake in the success of each of their voyages. If you
Hmm.
were on the crew, if you got injured, you got compensation for it. And if you lived to the end of the voyage, like you had a right to the spoils. And
Hmm.
so we are really trying to echo that by creating an artistic structure where instead of, even if it is a living wage, like you get paid your wage, you do the show. If the show does really well, if the reviews are great and there's great word of mouth, it's selling out every night, it's selling a lot of alcohol, all that stuff, your pay stays exactly the same. Your wage doesn't go up. You don't get anything for that. And
Hmm.
it's you, the person who, or the people who are like making the show happen, who are actually, you know, the reason for that. Like obviously the design and obviously the creative and all that stuff is really important, but like the people who are there every night are the actors, the crew, the front of house, all the people who are not traditionally paid very well. And
Hmm.
so if the show's doing really well, like those people, as well as obviously the people who always have equity in it, like the creatives, the producer, all that, it should be them and them getting to share in it, and it should be equal. At least that's how I view it. And so, yeah, once all of our basic production costs have been recouped, so base wages, and again, paying a livable wage, that is not an insignificant number.
Hmm.
Any design elements, rental fees for the space, rights for the show if applicable, marketing, all that stuff. Once the base production costs are covered, which are really, really low considering the quality of the work and the fact that the cast is being paid a living wage for Los Angeles. Um, like once all that is met, any additional money that is generated by the show, whether it be ticket sales, which admittedly are very small or radically affordable, but alcohol sales tend to be quite a bit more,
Hmm.
and then any form of donation, because we also have a little like poster board up that basically says, hey, the tickets are priced at $10 to be accessible. We, want any and everyone to be able to come see the show. But if you really enjoyed yourself and you have the means to give a little more, please scan this QR code to make a tax-deductible donation because we're a nonprofit. And so that is like kind of the model of, all of those donations, all of the money that comes in for that performance or for that production, that is completely like the money of the people who worked on it. It's not going to get taken and carried over to a next production. It's not going to just go into the pockets of a producer somewhere or an administrator. Like it is yours and it will be split evenly. Now, of course, realistically, this is never going to be that significant amount of money. Even if a show like really sells out and is doing amazing, my projections have just because it's split evenly between everyone based on time worked. Like if you worked for the full run of the show, like an actor or crew member does, where you're at every rehearsal and all the way to the end of the run, um, you would maybe get on an amazing run like an extra $3,000 to $5,000 at the end.
That's nothing to sneeze at, though.
Nothing to
Um,
sneeze at.
yeah.
Exactly. That's my
Yeah.
point. Like,
Uh-huh.
working class, like, oh, that's very significant. Now,
Yeah.
granted, that's like the best case scenario. The show is super popular, selling crazy well. Like, even if the show just does decent, though, you're probably getting like $500 to $1,500 as a bonus at the end.
Hmm.
Obviously, if the show doesn't sell well, no bonus.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Like I can't just, print money. Like, like it's very much based on how the show does.
Yeah.
So the equity stake only comes into effect if we recoup those initial costs for wages and everything. But because our overall costs are so low, that is actually a very feasible thing. We just need to have some kind of consistent, nonprofit grant funding in addition to, what is generated by the show running, and also just donations from people seeing it.
Yeah, and that again, that sort of sounds like the indie filmmaking model because a lot of indie films get made by giving the actors and or crew points because you don't have a huge multi-million-dollar budget. So in order to compensate people for their work, you give them points. So if the movie takes off or turns any kind of profit, they get a share in it, which also I'm sure it helps with morale. Everyone knows they have an ownership stake in it.
Yeah, and it helps with morale, and also the idea is we really want people to feel like a sense of community because everyone's paid the same wage. The pay scale
Uh-huh.
is completely flat. Um, and this is I'll go into a tangent about why that is in a minute, but I mean, obviously the overall reasoning is just our ideology is very much about equity,
Yeah.
equality. We want people to be treated well. So we want it, I don't want it to just be morale though. Like it's not just about like, oh yeah, we feel good because like we're gonna make more money if the show does well. I want people to have a sense of, appreciation for each other because of this as well, you know? Like everyone who works on the show has a right to the equity stake. So that's crew, that's workers, that's front of house, that's security,
Hmm.
everybody who works on it. And, I want the actor on stage who's giving an incredible performance and is the reason, the reviews are so good and why everybody's coming to see the show.
Hmm.
More than anything else, if the actor is the star, like really truly,
Hmm.
that's in this hypothetical, I want that star to be happy that they are making a living wage and that they are creating through their performance this additional money and this additional wealth that is going to benefit them, but it's going to benefit everyone around them as well. Because if you're that star, unless you just are complete like egotist, like that it's a lot more than just you. Even if it's like this first show of our season, almost a one-woman show, Lady Day, the pianist has a few lines throughout. And I mean, I don't like calling it almost a one-woman show. Theater people will, just because like all of the lines, all of the like acting stuff is almost a one-woman show pretty much. But
Uh-huh.
like he's playing piano the whole show for all of the songs, and like also whenever she needs breaks and stuff, like vamping and like doing all kinds of like cool jazz stuff, like that is literally the musical like backing of the entire show. Like it doesn't work without him. So I don't like saying almost a one-woman show, but from an acting standpoint, it definitely is. So, like I want that star, I want our stars, in this case, Bessie D. Smith and Luz Rodriguez. I want them when they're performing and seeing those crowds to be like, yeah, they're here for me, but like the reason they're here for me is because our creative team did a great job, with the space, the direction. Our director did great. Our music director did incredible work working with me and the pianist to get us in tune. My pianist is absolutely killing it. He is like completely supporting my voice and following me in every way. The, bartender is serving people drinks and bringing up the actual money that's coming in. And our stage manager is running the show. Without her, literally the show doesn't happen. Like you can't function without a stage manager. And, the security guard. Like I am safe to perform. I am safe to do all of this and to make all of this happen because that security guard is there protecting me. And then in turn, all of the people around that star that are, supporting them, I want them to be like, yeah, I want to support. I want to do my job as good as possible so that they can shine as bright as possible and bring in the most money so that we all benefit. I want that security guard to be thinking like, "Oh, I actually want to keep this place secure. I actually want to make sure that all of the people in here that I'm working with are good and that they are, able to perform and do this work, not just because I care about them because I'm a good person, hopefully, but also because like they are working their asses off to give a great show so that I can also, have a stake in that. And like, because honestly, like a lot of security guards, especially like, markets and stuff, like uh, they're not gonna do anything. I mean, obviously, a lot of times they're like, oh, I don't think security guards should run after people who steal merchandise generally, just because it's like it's not worth them maybe like having a gun or something and like killing you
Yeah.
over it or whatever. But
Hmm.
like in the case of security at a show like this, it's
Hmm.
not about trying to stop theft. It's about stopping, someone who might want to be disruptive or violent or cause, harm to the audience or to the other, people working. So like I want
Hmm.
my security guard to be bought in. I want them to want to protect us. I want them to want to be there and to, keep everything secure for our everyone's collective sake. And it's like you can't really ask a security guard who's making minimum wage and like
Yeah.
has no skin in the game to like actually put their physical safety on the line to
Yeah.
protect other people who clearly don't care about you or think you're worth paying any reasonable amount of money. Like no. Like you deserve a livable wage and you should be getting a stake in the success of the show as well. At least that's how I view it. And so and similarly with like, stage manager and pianist and creative and everybody else, like I want them to be feeling like they should work their absolute hardest and do their absolute best to enable the people who are going to be, the face of the production, the thing that is generally bringing in the most donations or the most money. Like, I want everyone to be so bought into supporting them because they know that when they succeed, everyone does. It's not just, the producers or, the people who are traditionally at the top making the money.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great way to approach it. And I know you got to go because you have
Yeah.
a performance coming up, but just one last question. What is like the earliest memory of maybe one of those shows you went to with your mom that made you realize theater is something you wanted to do and you wanted to share that experience with other people by getting involved in theater?
I think it's hard to say because I actually, before I wanted to do theater, up until I was like 15, I actually wanted to be a chef.
Oh,
I always
okay.
loved theater. I went and
Uh-huh.
saw a lot of, excuse me, I went and saw a lot of shows with my mom as a kid and continued to all through, high school.
Uh-huh.
Um, but honestly, we still see them now together sometimes as well.
Hmm.
But like, what made me want to do theater was after realizing I did not want to be a chef professionally, because I actually worked in a real kitchen for a little bit when I was 15.
Uh-huh.
Um, I was like, oh, I want to do this for fun, not for money. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was way too stressful.
Yeah.
Um, and so like I was kind of like, oh, what do I want to do? And then we went and saw um the tour of A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder,
Hmm. Okay.
um, which was a really fun musical comedy. It's very silly, it's very ridiculous, and not even particularly immersive or anything. Like
Hmm.
it's pretty traditional
Straightforward.
theater.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But it was just so good. The touring cast was so incredible. It was so funny. It was so much fun that, as I was sitting there kind of like, I wanna do this. Or, like I wanted to do cooking, but I don't really want to do it for a job. I don't really know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to be involved with. I saw that show and I was just like, man, it'd be cool to be a part of that somehow. And so, yeah, I just was like, I've always loved theater. Why don't I try doing it? And then I was going into my junior year, and they were doing Legally Blonde, the musical at my school. And I was
Hmm.
like, what the heck? All my friends are doing it. Let's try out. Let's see what happens. And that was it.
Well, that's so cool, and you're doing such a cool thing with the innovative approach to theater, and is hopefully more sustainable than the greed, like you said, that we see in other parts of the industry. So, if people want to come out and see a show or find out more about the Space Pirates Collective, what's the best way to do that?
You can check us out on our website at spacepiratestheatercollective.org. It is theater spelled R-E. Also, if you'd like to check us out on social media, you can look up Space Pirates on Instagram. It's actually our whole thing as well, but if you type in Space Pirates, like it'll come up. And yeah, come see a show. Our current show runs until March 6th. It is absolutely incredible. And yeah, if you'd like to support us, we really could use all the help we can get. If you're in America or the UK, or sorry, if you're in the US or the UK, um, you can make a tax-deductible donation. Much appreciated. But even just coming and seeing a show, buying a drink, we have a really awesome drinks menu. I'm very proud of it. And yeah, like check us out, follow us on social media. If you're a theater person who would like to get involved in some way, you can also email at Space Pirates Theater Collective, all spelled out, at gmail.com, and see if we can connect, see if we can intersect in some way. Um, yeah, thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much, Chris, for having me. It's really been great chatting with you.
Thank you, Ben. It's been great speaking with you. If you like this video, please leave a comment, share it, and subscribe to my channel.